stable in a borrowed manger. He borrowed a lunch to feed a lot of strangers. He borrowed a colt to ride into town on. He borrowed a tomb, but he wouldn't need it long. And the only thing he bought was me. When he shed his blood on Calvary, now redeemed by his blood for eternity. Oh, the only thing he bought was me. On the auction block of sin, this world had turned me down. Satan had told me, you're nothing but hell-bound. You're never gonna win. Your soul's forever lost. But Jesus paid it all on that old rugged cross. And the only thing he bought was me. When he shed his blood on Calvary, now redeemed by his blood for eternity. Oh, the only thing he bought was me. Now redeemed by his blood for eternity. Oh, the only thing he bought was me. Oh, the only thing he bought was me.
Amen. It's good to be back in church, ain't it? Amen. And man, I'm glad to be back at Hope Baptist Tabernacle. And man, if you can't get excited about the name of this church, you got problems. Amen. I'm glad that we have hope. And man, I'm thankful for that name. But man, I'm thankful to be back at church. Well, I want to take just a couple minutes. Preacher asked me to take a few minutes and to kind of tell you guys about what the Lord's called us to do in the ministry our family has. And I'd love to, because that's my heart. And so it's easy for me to take a couple minutes to talk about that. But just real specifically, we're missionaries to young people. But even more specific to that, we're missionaries to the public school system. And that's where our work is. And that's the majority of our work. And I'll tell you a little bit about that in a few minutes. But we're sent out of our local church, which my dad's a pastor, which is Thanks to Calvary Baptist Church. That's up in Elkin. And you can get there from here, but it's not easy. But it's up in Elkin, North Carolina. And since the fall of 2017, we've been doing what we're doing right now and the ministry that we're doing. And in that time of 2017, my little girl was just born. And right around the time we had our little girl is when God began to open some huge doors. God called me to preach in the summer of 2016 in the Foothills Revival. You may have heard that up in Yakko at Northwood. And it broke out during youth camp. We had 200 and some saved, and 9 of us was called to preach. That's where God called me to preach. And when he called me to preach, I knew, without a doubt, I knew I was going to be serving him in some form or fashion. Didn't know what. I just knew I was going to be serving him with my life. You say, how do you know that? Well, you just know. I mean, the Lord can let you know things if you get close to him. And that's kind of blunt, but that's just really honest with you. And that's what happened. We was close, and I was close to the Lord as I'd ever been in my life at that point. And I knew God was calling me to do something. I had no idea. Well, a few months later, that was in the summer. So that first of the next year, I got voted in as the interim pastor of a church in Yadkinville, and man, it was a good church, still a good church. I just preached there 2 weeks ago, and I love going to that church. And I honestly thought I was going to be a pastor of that church. I wanted to be a pastor, and I was raised a pastor's kid. You figure that one out. I can't explain why I was raised a pastor's kid and wanted to be a pastor. I'd already seen all the bad stuff, and I still want to be a pastor. But that's what I really thought I was going to be doing. But it became so clear, and I was voted in 100%. That's what's crazy. 100% to be pastor of that church. And I wanted it. My wife wanted it. We wanted to take it. And I could not get a clear answer, yes or no. I didn't get a no from God. I just didn't get a yes. And I ain't moving forward on a maybe, okay? There's got to be one thing or the other. And my grandpa, y'all know him well, Dr. Alan Barker's always told me this. And he said, if God don't give you yes, if he don't tell you yes, you better stay put. And you need to stay put. Until you get peace in your heart, you don't need to make a decision. And he was right. He was right, because just months after that, in that summer of 2017, God began to open some doors in our school system. Good night, that I just couldn't believe. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about that in just a second. But since that time of the fall of 2017, we've been working in numerous areas dealing with young people. And I want to give you just a few of those areas. We've been doing what I'd call character education in our public school system in all ages, elementary, middle, high school. And I love doing that. And that's the majority of what we do, but we do more than that. We help run an after-school program that's located right at our local church, where we have, during the school year, anywhere from 20 to 40 kids every day come in, where we, basically what it is, it's a daycare. It's not, but that's basically what it is. It's an after-school program where they can come and stay there till their mom and dad come and get them. But in that time, come on now, during that time, we get to teach them the Bible. We get to teach them about the Lord, help them with their homework. But, man, we get to give them something better than what they're giving them down to the schoolhouse, and that's Jesus. And, I love doing that. We also, on a normal basis, we help run a summer Bible camp where we have kids come in. The last couple of summers we was able to do that. We had 19 saved 2 summers ago. Last summer, 22 saved in that summer camp, and that's wonderful. I love doing that. And I love seeing souls saved. That might be why I love doing that, because them kids ain't fun. But I do love doing that. And that's just my heart, is them youngins. I love it. I love seeing them saved. Because here's the thing, commercial break. It's easier to bend a new sapling than it is a 50-year-old oak tree. I think y'all understand that. When I was growing up, me and my grandpa, if he had a tree that he had planted, it started growing quick, you know what we'd do? We'd go there, take a string, and tie it to it, and then go on the other side of it, put a little stake in the ground. Why? Because you'd straighten that thing back up if you'd work with it for a while. It's easier to bend a little one than a big one. That's why it's important to get them young. And I love doing that Bible camp. Also, we do something this summer. We've done it a whole lot more than we have before, and that's run vacation Bible schools for churches. And it's really amazing that some churches, I love vacation Bible school. In fact, I hope you forgive me. That's where my youngins are right now. Our church is our home church is having Bible school, and we travel so much where they miss a lot of stuff. Well, I told them they was coming to church. I said, just go to Bible school. So that's where they are. I'm sorry. But anyway, I love doing Bible school. I get to do a lot of them. There's a lot of churches that don't have the manpower or the know-how to do a Bible school, and we get to go in and do that, and I've been able to do quite a few of those this summer. Another thing I love to do, you say, are you ever going to start talking about what you do? No, we are busy. I like being busy, man. I could talk all night. We preach fifth quarters. Basketball, football game, other things, not baseball because they're weird, but football and basketball, how many quarters you got? 4, yeah, somebody said it. So we go in and coordinate with the school, and they let us teach or preach a fifth quarter. And that's after the ball game's done. A lot of times we're able to do this and go right on the ball court or the football field or even the baseball field and other things like that and preach the gospel. I've seen youngins saved on football fields. I've seen them saved on basketball courts. And that's one of my favorite things to do right there. It really is, because I love basketball. I think it's just, I was too short to go to the NBA. And not because I wasn't good enough, I was just too short. And that was the first joke tonight, okay? But here's the deal. I didn't get to do that. I didn't get to play much in my childhood. I think God's let me do that. Now I love basketball so much, He's let me preach on the ball court. Anyway, that's just that's what I think. You think whatever you want to. That's just what I'm going to say, okay? And but some other things we do. We get to do a little mentorship program, and troubled kids, we get to bring them in and mentor them one-on-one. That makes a big difference. It really does. But the biggest part of our ministry, and I'm there now, the biggest part of our ministry is character education. Going into the public school, teaching character to our kids. And if there's one thing our schools need, let me say it like this. If there's one thing our country needs, it's character. I know, man, we need some integrity. We need morals, ethics. We need them. Good night, we need them. It's a dying breed. Somebody's got character in our country now. And I love getting to do this. You say, you get to go preach John 3:16? Well, just hang on one second, okay? Don't cut me off yet. There's two types of classrooms that I get to teach in. I feel like I need to tell you this so you can understand what I do. There's a voluntary setting, and there's an involuntary setting. There's a voluntary setting. Me and Brother Jason was talking about this at lunch today. The voluntary setting is this right here, where those kids choose to be where I'm at. They volunteer themselves. That's where that word comes from. They volunteer themselves to be where I'm at. And when they do that, like at the after school, like a Good News Club, that's after school, or a Yes Club after school, they've chosen to be there out of their own free will. That gives me the liberty to say whatever I want to say. Preach the gospel, preach John 3:16 to them, and I do it every chance I get. And I love doing that. But the majority of what I do is not in the voluntary setting, it's the involuntary setting. And that's where they don't have a choice. They got to listen to me. That's a Baptist preacher's dream right there. They ain't got a choice in the matter. They got to listen to me. And you know what? But in that setting, there are limitations that I have according to the law. I can't go in there and just blast the Bible to them and blast John 3:16 in their ears. I'd love to do that, but I'd love to be there more than I do that, okay? I want to be there. I abide by their rules. Why? Because that's what I'm teaching. I'm teaching character. Character is obeying rules, so I gotta obey the rules. But don't cut me off, I told you. I may be limited, but those students are not limited. Hey, young people, you really need to listen for the next 2 minutes. Them students are not limited. They have every liberty in our country to say whatever they want to say in our public schools. And so you say, what do you teach in those settings when you can't quote the Bible? What are you talking about? You're a missionary, can't even quote the Bible. You're crazy, man. I get to teach things like this. I'm going somewhere. I can teach things like forgiveness, loving one another, respecting authority, obeying them that have the rule over you. You ever heard that before? I think I know where that comes from. You say, what do you teach? I teach the principles of God's Word. That's exactly what I teach. And you say, well, what if you don't get to quote Scripture? I hope you don't cut me off right here, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'd rather be in there trying to teach these kids character than not in there at all. I really would. Because guess what? They ain't getting it at home. They ain't getting it at home. A lot of them. Some of them are. But most of them, I say most of them, and I mean that. Somebody's got to go teach them. Somebody's got to go to where they are. You say, but you don't even get to preach the Bible. All right, I'm going to prove to you that I do. We was in an elementary class not too long ago, 2nd and 3rd grade, and we was teaching on how to make a difference. How to make a difference with your life. And it got turned around on us that day. Instead of me teaching on how to make a difference, I got to talking about someone that's made a difference in my life. I got to talking about different people in my life. Well, towards the end of that little topic we was talking on, there's little hands, about 40 of them that it was in a library at that moment. There's about 40 of them, 45 of them in that class. And they started raising their hand, and over here said, well, Tater man, that's what they call me, ask me later. Tater man, well, my mama's made a difference for me. I said, you know what, I got a mama that's made a difference for me too. One over here said, well, my daddy's made a difference for me. One over here said, my teacher's made a difference. I said, you do got some good teachers. My principal's made a difference over here. I said, yeah. I called her principal by name. I said, yeah, you do got a good principal. One over here said, well, my preacher's made a difference for me. Hey, we're on the right road. And I said, you know what? I got a preacher that's made a difference to me. And I told him how my preacher has always been my dad. And we started talking. They started laughing. And you know what? Over here said, well, my Sunday school teacher's made a difference to me. And we're on the right track. And I'll never forget this as long as I live. There's a little girl back in the back corner of that classroom, back where Brother Andrew's sitting back there. And you know what she said? She raised her hand. She said, Tater, man. I said, yes, ma'am. She said, Jesus has made a difference for me. And I about shouted right there. I'll be honest with you. I said, and you know what I said? Now, I told you, they got all the liberty in the world, what they can say and what they can't say. And I looked at that little girl, I said, what do you mean by that? Come on. You know what she said? I promise you, this is exactly what she said. She said, well, a long time ago on a hill called Calvary, there's a man by the name of Jesus that went and died, I'm not lying, that went and died on a cross, died in my place. If I believe in what he did for me, when I die, I ain't got to go to hell and I can go to heaven. I couldn't have done it any better myself, honestly. And we started talking about that. And she said this. She said, this is probably your type of language. She said, I once was lost, but now I'm saved. Well, there's a little boy on this side of the classroom raised his hand and said, I think I got a Bible verse that goes along with that. I said, I sure do want to hear it. He said, for God so loved the world that he gave, you know the rest. You know what? We went to church for about 15 more minutes in that classroom. I never finished my lesson, and I was completely okay with that. I was fine with it. We got tapped in right there. And you know what? After that, toward the end of that class, I was running out of time with those kids, and I said this. I said, you know what? She said that she once was lost, but now she's saved. I said, anybody in here ever been saved? Man, a bunch of them little hands went up. And I said this. I said, well, if you've never been saved, that means you're lost. And I said, anybody here never been saved? Anybody in here that's never been saved, that means you're lost? A little boy and a little girl raised their hand that morning in that library. And I said this because I couldn't do it while I was in class. But I could say this. I said, if you want to know more what she's talking about, you come talk to Tater Man anytime you want to. I'll tell you all about what she's talking about. Guess what happened after class that day? That little boy and little girl came up to Tater Man and got saved right in the center of that school. You say, but I thought God has been taken out of public school. Well, I'm just here to tell you something different. God wants to do something mighty big in our schools. There's not many. There are some. There's not, compared to how many schools is in our country, there's not many people doing what I'm doing. And I ask you to pray for us. Because I believe, and this is probably more Simpsonology than it is fact, but I believe that the school system is America's mission field. I really do. I believe it's our mission field, and we got to have somebody go for us. Dr. Stan Blue said this many years ago. It's one of my favorite things I've ever heard. He said, for any ministry to take place, you got to have power, but you got to have 3 powers specifically. 1, you got to have mighty power, and that is somebody's got to get a hold of God. 2, you got to have manpower. That's somebody's got to go. And 3, you got to have money power. That's somebody's got to give. I'll say this, all 3 of us should be involved in all of those powers right there. We all need to pray. We all need to go. You say, I can't go to the schools. I got to work and provide for my family. Yeah, but you can tell those people down at your job. You can tell that neighbor of yours. Tell that person at the convenience store. Everybody ought to go, and everybody ought to give. And, man, I tell you what, this is my passion. I got to be careful because I'll take all night and preach on it. I'm not going to preach that long. That's the first lie I'll tell you tonight. But I'll tell you this. I'm telling you this 100% certain that I'm in the will of God. And I'll tell you this, there's no better thing in your life to know than to know that you're right in the middle of where God wants you. Before you leave, I'm going to set a few of these down here. If you want them, you can grab them. And got my prayer card. And take one, put it on your refrigerator. Look, I'm looking at you. I know that's where you go more than anywhere else in your house. I got to stop. Y'all make it too easy to have fun. And but get one of those, and I'd appreciate it. Pray for us, and I sure would appreciate it. Lord's good to us. I don't have no sad stories to tell. He's good. And I was thinking about this song on the way down here today, or tonight, and I saw an old camp song. I used to sing this growing up, and I'm going to sing it tonight. The psalmist said, as the heart panteth after the water brook, so my soul longeth after thee. And that's what this song talks about. As the deer panteth for the water, so my soul longeth after thee. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee. You alone are my strength, my shield. To you alone may my spirit yield. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee. You're my friend and you are my brother, even though you are a king. And I love you more than any other, so much more than anything. I want you more than and gold or silver, only you can satisfy. And you alone are the real joy giver and the apple of my eye. You alone are my strength, my shield. To you alone may my spirit yield. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee. Amen. I love that song. I say that's true in my life. He is what I desire most. And I hope that you can say that. I preached a little bit about that this morning, about that satisfied. He's the only one that can satisfy. Amen. I wrote this song back in September of last year. It's almost been a year. That feels like yesterday I wrote this song. Time is flying, y'all. It's crazy. And but you know what? No matter what goes on in life, it's good to be saved. That's just it. That's what this song talks about. You can take away pretty much everything I got. There's one thing you can't have. That's my salvation. And it's not up for grabs. And this song just simply says it's good to be saved. In this world we're living in, there's so much strife and so much sin. But no matter how bad may be the day, there's one thing that I know: it's good to be saved. It's good to be saved. It's good to be free. It's good to be blood washed, justified eternally. And rough may be the road, but heaven is my home. Jesus washed my sins away. It's good to be saved. There is a world not made by man, and one of these days I'm moving in. When I reach those pearly gates, I'll enter that land fairer than day. It's good to be saved. It's good to be saved. It's good to be free. It's good to be blood washed, justified eternally. And rough may be the road, but heaven is my home. Jesus washed my sins away. It's good to be saved. Rough may be the road, but heaven is my home. Jesus washed my sins away. It's good to be saved. Yes, Jesus washed my sins away. It's good to be saved. Amen. Hallelujah. It's good to be saved. Hey, there's only one thing better than being saved. You know what it is? Being saved and knowing it. Yeah. It's good to be saved. And, well, I want you to take your Bible tonight, turn to the book of Luke. And while you're turning, I'll say it's good to be back at Hope Baptist Tabernacle. And, man, I'm glad to be back in church. And, man, I'm thankful for this morning. If nobody else got to help in the service this morning, I did. And, Lord have mercy, I got help. And, man, I'm thankful that the Lord can help you while you're preaching. And I'd be about miserable if He couldn't, because I'm telling you what, I love it. I sometimes, if it's okay with you, sometimes I enjoy my own preaching. Is that okay? I don't know if that's okay or not, but I do it. And I'm thankful that His Word is alive. It speaks to us. It's alive. It's good to be back in church. And I hope you found your place in Luke chapter number 8. I'll say this. If you, my family's got a CD, and a preacher asked me to bring some of those. So if you want one of those, they're usually $10 a piece. If you don't have no money, you come get one. But they're usually $10 a piece. But I'll tell you what I'll do. Where am I at? Am I in Moxville? Is this Moxville? Okay. I tell you what I do. I run the Moxville special. They're usually $10 a piece, but tonight I'll sell them 1 for $10 or 3 for $29.99. Okay, and You'll think about that at lunch tomorrow, and it'll dawn on you, that dude's a liar. He's a Baptist preacher if I ever seen one. But some of y'all still ain't got that. But that's kind of like a blonde, though. Blonde, sometimes it's okay. I love blondes. I married one, okay? It's okay. But you know what? Blondes, let's just be honest. Sometimes it takes them a while. And usually, this is what's cool about blonde. They'll laugh at your joke 3 different times. They'll laugh at it when you tell it. They'll laugh at it when you explain it. They'll laugh at it when they get it, okay? And that's okay. That's a pretty good joke. I got better, but I better preach. But I was talking about the schools a second ago, and I thought about this woman that was a school teacher, and it was a Wednesday afternoon, and she told her kids, she said, now, this Friday we're going to have a show and tell. And man, they got excited. And they said, now what we want you to do is we want you to bring a symbol of your religion, something that symbolizes your religion. So man, they got excited. They were ready to roll. Well, Friday comes around, and here they come into class with their items, their symbols. And the first little girl got up, and she had a crucifix, and we know that represents Catholicism. And the next little boy got up, and he had the Star of David in Judaism. Well, then the next little girl got up, and she had a casserole. And she said, I'm a Baptist. So I thought about that when we was eating lunch today. Look, again, we like to eat. I'm looking at y'all. Y'all looking at me. Let's not hide anything. We can't. Luke chapter number 8. Let's get to the Bible. I better just hold that number here. I'll tell it next time. Okay. Luke chapter. We was talking about it before church. It's all right to have fun. I love having fun. Man, ain't nothing like. And here's the deal. I'll say it like this. If you can't have fun in here, I don't know what you're going to do. This ought to be the best place in the world. It ought to be the most liberty in the world right here. And it was this morning. It was free. And man, I'm thankful for that. But man, we ought to be able to come in this house and have a good time. It's like going to a family reunion. Some of your family reunions probably ain't that good, but if you got a close family, that's some of the best time in the world. And man, I love that. Man, I love getting together because we're getting together with family. This is our brothers and sisters in Christ. Man, I love having a good time. Well, I want you to go to Luke chapter number 8, and I want to read some scripture. If you found your place, I want you to stand, and for reverence, for our King James Bible, I want to read you some scripture tonight that I love, and try to give you what God has on my heart. And if the preacher, you're probably watching. Thank you, preacher, for letting us come. And if he may not be watching right now, he'll watch it later. And because he's going to check up on me because y'all told him I was crazy this morning, so he better watch. And but I tell you what, it's my honor to be here. Luke chapter number 8, verse number 40. Let's go to 41. And behold, there came a man named Jairus. He was a ruler of the synagogue. He fell down at Jesus' feet and besought him that he would come into his house. For he had one only daughter, about 12 years of age, and she lay a-dying. But as he went, the people thronged him, and a woman having an issue of blood 12 years, which had spent all her living upon physicians, neither could be healed of any, came behind him, and touched the border of his garment. And immediately her issue of blood staunched. And Jesus said, Who touched me? When all denied, Peter and they that were with him, gotta love Peter, he's pretty bold. He said, Master, the multitude thronged thee and pressed thee, and sayest thou, Who touched me? He said that to Jesus, y'all. That dude was bold. Verse 46, and Jesus said, Somebody hath touched me, for I perceive that virtue is gone out of me. And when the woman saw that she was not hid, she came trembling and falling down before him. She declared unto him before all the people for what cause she had touched him, and how she was healed immediately. And she said unto her, and he said unto her, Daughter, be of good comfort, thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace. While he yet spake, there cometh one from the ruler of the synagogue's house, saying to him, Thy daughter is dead. Trouble not the master. But when Jesus heard it, he answered him, saying, Fear not. Believe only, and she shall be made whole. When he came into the house, he suffered no man to go in, save Peter and James and John, the father of the mother of the maiden. And all wept and bewailed her. If you study that out right there, that was paid mourners. People that were paid to come in and mourn and
and really just cause a big scene. Somebody that was paid to come cause a big, it almost sounds like a bunch of Democrats if you ask me, but they were paid to, that was my best joke of the night right there, y'all. That was a good one. And all wept and bewailed her. It was a joke, by the way. I was just kidding. Don't get too mad at me. But he said, weep not. She is not dead, but sleepeth. And they laughed him to scorn, knowing that she was dead. They were making fun of the Lord. And he put them all out and took her by the hand and called, saying, Maid, arise. And her spirit came again, and she arose straightway and commanded to give her meat. Thank you for standing. You can be seated. I love this text. But in this text, we find a man by the name of Jairus. And Jairus here, the daddy of this daughter, is in the situation, he's in the middle of a situation that I can hardly fathom where he's at. I can almost feel what he's feeling, but really and truly, I've never been in a situation quite like what he is here in this time. His daughter's dying, but I'll say this about him. He's doing what's right. He's doing what is best for his little girl. Why? Because when his little girl was sick, dying, guess where he goes? He goes to the only person that can help her. That's exactly what he does. He gets to Jesus. He gets to where the Lord is, gets to where the Master is. And then, if you look right over here in verse verse 42. But at the end, but as he went, the people thronged him. He gets to where Jesus is. If you look up that word thronged, there was so many people there that it was literally like they were drowning in people. They were suffocating in that group of people. He gets to Jesus, then he gets stuck. He can see where he needs to go. He knows what he needs to do, but he can't move. You'll talk about a frustrating place to be. Knowing where you need to get to, good night, and not being able to move. I feel as if I've been in the same type of predicament that Jairus is finding himself in. No, I've never been in the same situation, but I've been in things like that where I knew where I needed to get to. I knew what I needed to do in my life, but it felt like I was spinning my wheels, that I wasn't going nowhere. That's where Jairus is. I've seen churches that way. I've seen churches where they knew where they wanted to be. No, they knew where they wanted to get to, but it felt like they couldn't gain any ground. Their wheels were just spinning. They were stuck. I've seen people like that. I've seen ministries like that. I've seen marriages like that. Knowing where they need to get to fix the problem, but can't ever get there. And man, I tell you what, that's a hard place to be in life. What do you do when you get in that position? What do you do when you're stuck? That's what I'm going to preach on tonight. What do you do when you get stuck? I thought about getting stuck, and I thought about hearing this text. And old Jairus, you know what it reminded me of? If you travel as much as I do, I know some of you probably do, it reminded me of being stuck in traffic. I hate being stuck in traffic. Let's just throw that out there. I hate it. But you know what? There's times when I travel up and down the road, I get stuck. I get stuck in traffic. And I hate it, but I get there. And you know what? There's some things that you're going to want to do, by way of introduction. There's some things you're going to want to do when you get stuck in traffic. I'm talking about in real life. The first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take the wrong exit. I remember a couple years ago I was traveling out to Kentucky to preach in a camp meeting out there. And I remember I was traveling and I got up in West Virginia somewhere. And I don't understand where we live. You got to go this way to go that way. If you can explain that to me, I appreciate it. But if you want to go, Kentucky's that way. I was in West Virginia. Somebody explain it to me, but that's where I was. I was on 77. And I got up in there, and I remember looking out in front of where I was, and all of a sudden I seen a bunch of red lights, brake lights. And I was by myself, and I just thought I had like 4 hours left to go. And I was like, this is not good. I got to get down the road. Well, I got stuck. And about a couple miles later, after we just poked along a little bit, this is a true story. It really irritates me even to tell the story. But you know, a couple miles down the road, we were still just barely going. And I could see up in the distance, there was an exit. And I could see up there that there was like a caravan of cars getting off that exit. And I thought to myself, there's got to be another way. I got to be able to take that exit to get where I want to go. So guess what I do? I take the wrong exit. And this is God's honest truth. You know what was on that exit? A restaurant. That was it. That's the truth. And you know what happened to me? I got up off that exit, and I found out there's a restaurant. I got mad, obviously. And I turned around and got back on the runway, I'm not an airplane, on the ramp. And you know what? I got farther behind than what I already was. I hope y'all listen to me. I got farther behind than what I already was because I thought I knew a better way. Man. I thought I knew a better way, and I took the wrong exit. Did I get to my destination? Yeah, but it took me longer than what it would have if I'd have just stayed right where I should have been. In life, man, y'all see the application? In life, sometimes you're going to get stuck. And you know what our tendency is? Our tendency as human beings is try to figure it out on our own. And we're bad to do this. I'm bad to do this. And I'll try to figure it out. You know what I want to do when I don't feel like things are moving like they should be? I'll try to take the wrong exit and try to do things on my own. Now, am I going to get to my destination? Yeah. But because of my stupidity, that's what it is. I have caused myself more time than what I should have been doing if I'd have just stayed right where God had put me. Not only are you going to want to take a wrong exit, I'll say this, you're going to want to take a shortcut. You're from the country like I am. You like them shortcuts. But you know what? Really and truly, when it comes to shortcuts, this is basically what it is. They ain't. They ain't. More times than not, that ain't really a shortcut. There's a place up in Elkin, and there's a four-way stop. I hate them things. Ain't nobody know how to drive them things. Good night. They're just sitting there. You go. You go. And then you go. Okay, now it's my turn. Bam! And they hit each other. That's what happens at a four-way stop. Look, the one at the right goes first. Somebody do like a billboard in front of all these four-way stops. Tell them the car to the right goes first. Okay, here we go. That is right, ain't it? Okay. Look, go pick up a book at the DMV. I'm not your DMV instructor. Here's the deal. There's a four-way stop now. See, I had to get back. There's a rabbit. I had to run. And I got, right before you get to the four-way stop, there's a road right here. To get to our church over here, you go that four-way stop and you turn left. But this road right here also goes that way. It's a little bit longer, but it ain't got no four-way stop on it. So if you get on it and you hit the one on the right just a little bit hard, that's the gas pedal, you're going to get there faster. It really ain't the case. You know why? Because everybody wants to take the shortcut. And you know what it causes? More trouble than if you just stayed on the right path. I remember when we went to Thanks to Calvary 8 years ago now, I think. It's been a long time. Getting close. No, maybe 9 years. Good night. I'm getting old. 9 years ago almost. We weren't growing like I thought we should. We got there, first service had 19 in a building that said about 350. It looked empty. It really did. And I remember that we got in that first service, and that was culture shock for us. It really was, because I grew up in a rather large church. I really did. And we got there, and the first few months, we seen a little bit of growth, and then it was like we stagnant. And I told my dad, I'll never forget this conversation we had. I was like, Daddy, there's a church right down the road. Now, I know y'all don't look at other churches and compare yourselves, but I did, okay? I did. I looked at that church that was just booming. I said, Daddy, I don't understand. Can you help me understand why we ain't growing and other churches just booming? I'll never forget what he said to me. He looked at me. He said, hey, we're going to build a church, but we're going to build it the right way. And I didn't understand what he was saying. He said, we ain't taking a shortcut. That's what he said. We ain't taking a shortcut. We're going to build it right. We're going to build it by the Bible. Guess what happened? The church started growing. There's a lot of churches in our day. There's a lot of people that want to take shortcuts. This is really honest with you. Don't cut corners. Do it right. Do it the Bible way. Not only are you going to want to take a shortcut, you're going to want to take the wrong exit. I got to move. Then you're going to want to make a U-turn. When you get stuck, you're going to want to turn around. Time out, dude. On the highway, that's illegal, okay? Let's just be honest. That's authorized personnel only, or authorized vehicles only. You ain't supposed to go in that little dirt road and turn around and go the other way. Just for the record, you can't get there by going that way. I don't understand when people go through a hard time in life. I'm going somewhere, I promise. I don't understand when people go through a hard time. I'm a meddling again. Somebody told me that this morning. I know they was joking. But we was joking after church. I'm going to go meddling again. And you know what? I don't understand why people, when they go through a hard time, they run away from the church. What? That leaves me speechless. I don't even have anything else to say. Listen to me. When you go through a hard time, don't run away from the church. Run towards the church. You say, but you don't understand what we're going. No, you need to get more involved in the church house when you're going through a hard time. It's truth. Why in the world would you go away from the problem solver? I'm getting near him. Jairus here, that's exactly what he did. He didn't run away from where the Lord was. When a problem hit his house, he went straight to Jesus. Oh, yes. You know what? Problem's going to come. Y'all just get ready for it. Some of y'all, a lot of y'all are older than I am. Some of y'all I'm just kidding. But you know what? Some of y'all are older than me. And guess what? Y'all know so much more than I know. You ought to be up here preaching instead of me, really. Because you know more than I do. You know that problem's going to come. Everybody knows that verse, man that's born of a woman is of a few days and full of trouble. And when problems come, they're going to come one of three ways. They're either going to come physically, they're going to come financially, or they're going to come through your family. One of those three ways. You can count on it. And when those come, what are you supposed to do? What am I going to do? Let's look at it. Right here in our text, I want to show you a few things about Jairus and what he did when problems struck his house. I want to show you, first of all, in verse number 41, I see the humility of the Pharisee. In this verse, we see in verse number 41 that Jairus was a ruler of the synagogue. And right there with that, there's usually a certain level of pride that comes along with that position of that synagogue. You study it out for yourself. There's usually a certain level of pride that comes with that position where Jairus was. And now in his life, though, he's come into contact with something that is bigger than he is. He's come into contact with something that he cannot handle. I'll say this on his behalf. He's done exactly what he's supposed to do. He's done exactly what he's supposed to do. He's gone to get the master. But look what it said there. Look at verse 41. There came a man named Jairus. He was the ruler of the synagogue. And what did he do? He fell down. Good night. He fell down at the feet of Jesus. You know what needs to be the very first thing that you do when a problem comes in your life? You need to find an altar somewhere and fall down at the feet of Jesus. That needs to be the first thing. I love that Jairus here. The very first thing that he does is he falls down at Jesus' feet. Maybe you do it right every time, but I don't. I shouldn't say that, but I don't. Every once in a while, I try to figure it out my own way, but that's not Jairus. He gives us a perfect example of what he's supposed to do. He does everything right, and then he gets stuck. I wish I could understand that. But he did everything right. I don't know. Now, there's a little bit of white in between those lines. But according to what I'm reading, he did what was right. He went to where Jesus was. Then he gets stuck. And I see not only the humility of the Pharisee, I see the horror of the parents. Because the problem is still there. Their daughter is still dying. I mean, Jairus has done right. I said that already. Jairus has done exactly the right thing. He's gone and he's got the one that can help their problem and fix what is wrong in their life. But now the people are crowding around him, and guess what? I can't blame those people. Because what if Jesus were to come to Knoxville tomorrow? I'd say it'd probably be a crowd to get around. I would. I'd be bumping shoulders with everybody trying to get as close as I could to where Jesus was. I can't blame those people. I can't. I believe we probably all knock each other down to get where Jesus was. Well, I'll say this and move, but if Jairus was an average, independent, fundamental, judgmental, temperamental Baptist, I said that right. That was true what I just said. But you know what? If he's an average Baptist church member, he'd probably say something like this. I sure wish they'd get out of my way. You know I'm right. Do they not know what's going on at my house? They don't know that my daughter's dying? That I need Jesus to go to my house? Don't they understand what's happening? They're getting in the way. Well, sometimes, if we ain't careful, we'll let our situation, we'll take our focus on what God's wanting to do in our life. We'll look at everybody else, we'll start complaining about what everybody else is doing when we need to focus on what God's doing in our life. I don't know what Jairus said, but I know it's never recorded if he complained or not. I mean, no doubt he thought it. No doubt he thought it. But in this text, Jairus, no doubt in his mind, I don't know if he ever said it, but I know in his mind, he's on an emotional roller coaster. His emotions are all over the place. His daughter gets sick, he gets to Jesus, then he gets stuck. He's all over the place. He's talking about, hey, Mom and Daddy, put yourself in that place where Jairus is at right now. His daughter, 12 years old, is dying at home, and he can't move. That's a frustrating place to be. The horror of the parents. You say, well, how sick is she? She dies. That's pretty sick. That's pretty sick. The horror of the parents. I want to see that. I'm moving. There's the hindrance of the progress. Right here, the crowd is gathered around them where they can't move. No doubt his heart is broken. No doubt his emotions are all over the place. He's anxious because he wants to be where his little girl is, but he's stuck. I believe his wife is dependent on him to get back to where they are. His daughter's dependent on him to bring Jesus with him, and he can't go anywhere. Their progress has been hindered. Jairus can't move. I'm going to say it anyway. You ever wonder why Jesus answers other people's prayer and not yours? I do. You ever wonder why? Maybe you don't. You ever ask the Lord why? It's okay to ask God why. It's not okay when that why turns into bitterness. And that's what that leads to, so you got to be careful with that question. But it is okay. Jesus said, why hast thou forsaken me? But you ever wonder why God answers other people's prayers instead of yours? Now y'all looking at me like y'all ain't ever asked God why. Y'all a bunch of lying dogs. Y'all all have asked God why. You know, when I was growing up, there's a word I really hated. You know what that word was? It was because. I hated that word. Hey, Daddy, can we go get some ice cream on the way home? No. But why? Because. Man, I hated that word. Golly. I hated it. But now I got kids. It's my favorite word. Yeah. Yeah, man, it's my favorite word. Because I'm a daddy and you're the child. And I know why, but I ain't got to tell you why. That's my favorite word. Do you know what? I remember as a kid, I hated that word. When Dad wouldn't give me a reason. See, we're inquisitive people. We need to understand why. I feel like sometimes that God has used that word a lot in my life. Because. Now, maybe you've never asked God why, and that's okay. I'll just preach to myself for just a second. I'll say, God, why does this have to be happening? God, why does this have to be taking place? And it's almost as if He looks back at me and says, because. That's a hard place to be at. When God don't give you a reason. When God don't tell you why. I can almost hear the thoughts of Jairus here. There's no doubt he's asking God why in his mind at least. Why he can't move? Why he can't get to where his daughter is? I got a sad truth for you. You read those verses again that we read a minute ago. Jesus never told Jairus why. That's not easy. Jesus never told Jairus why his little daughter had to die. There's been times that I've had to ask why, and I don't get an answer. I don't like that. I'm just being real with you. I hope y'all are okay. That ain't easy. When you don't understand why the things that are happening in your life, when you don't understand it, that's a real good time. It's a real good time in that moment just to depend on God. You know why? I could preach a whole message on why I trust God. I could preach a whole series on it. But you know why I trust God? Because He ain't ever one time let me down. He ain't ever one time made a mistake. And even when I don't know why, when I don't understand why, He's still right. Man, I still don't make it any easier. But you know what we need to do? We need to learn. First of all, can I say this? Who am I to think I deserve an answer? Who am I to think that I deserve to understand why certain things are happening? I don't deserve anything. I deserve hell. I sure don't deserve God to give me a reason. But I still want one. And you do too. But every once in a while in our life, things are going to happen. People are going to get sick. People are going to betray you. Church ain't going to grow. People are going to leave you. And you're going to go to God and say, God, I sure wish you'd help me understand this. I sure wish you'd help me understand why I've had to go through this. And it's going to be as if God looks back at you and says, because He's God. He knows best. Even when we don't understand it, even if you don't know why, God still knows best. And it's a real good day in our life. It's a real good day when we just learn to depend on the omniscience of God. That He knows all, that He's in control of all, and that He's going to work it all for our good. Yeah, that's a good place to be, y'all. When you don't know why, but you still got peace. I can't explain it to you. I can't explain it to you. But you can go through the dark, man. You can go through the darkest of midnights and still have peace in your heart. Even when God don't let you understand why, you can still have the peace of God. Hallelujah! You can still have the peace of God. That everything's going to be all right. Everything's going to be all right. Why? Because He's in control. Don't ever think that Jesus wasn't in control when He was gathered, when all them people was gathered around. Jesus knew exactly what was happening. He knew exactly where He knew exactly where Jairus' little girl was. He knew the exact moment that she died. You know what? It never got out of His It never got out of His hands. Even when it was out of Jairus' hands, honey, it never got out of Jesus' hands. Man, there's going to be times in your life where you don't understand why. It's going to feel out of your hands, but friend, it ain't ever going to be out of His hands. You just got to learn to trust Him. Learn to depend on Him. Well, I got to move. I'm getting help nobody else is. Hallelujah. It ain't ever out of His hands. He's always in control. We just got to trust Him. Right here in our text, there's a break in the action, though. We see, well, I'll give you a bunch of points. Let me give you a few more. I about said one more. That would have been the second lie I told you tonight. Let me give you this one. There's the hymn of the physician. I told you there's a break in the action. There's actually, what it is, it's a parenthetical passage. I just say them words to make me sound smart. I really don't even know what it means. I'm just kidding. There's a parenthetical passage. What does that mean? The story of Jairus' daughter is the main story of this text. But right in the middle of it, there's that woman with the issue of blood. And really in Luke chapter number 8, the most preached about message in Luke 8 is that little segment about the woman with the issue of blood. But it's just right in the middle of this big story. Here's a woman that's been sick for 12 years. Ain't it amazing that Jairus' daughter was 12 years of age? I don't think that was a coincidence. It might have been, well, I got to go. Y'all make it real easy to preach. It might have been Jesus wanted to show Jairus on his way when they were stuck. When they was in a situation Jairus didn't understand, it might have been Jesus wanted to show Jairus and say, hey, look right here. Look what I can do. Good night. And you know what? This woman that was sick for 12 years, she comes to Jesus. And she had an issue that she had spent all her money on and she had got no better. She was depleted. She was financially depleted. She had spent all. She was physically depleted. She wasn't getting no better. I believe she was probably spiritually depleted as well, because that's what happens when you get sick. It drains you. And the crowd was so great around them that she could hardly get to where the Master is. I don't know if she didn't get down on her hands and knees and crawl to where Jesus is, saying, if I could just touch the hem, if I could just get to the hem of His garment. She had to get past the knees of those people, get past the feet of those people to get to where Jesus was. I'm just going to be honest with you. They didn't have boots back then like this. They didn't have shoes that were closed. They were open toes, honey. Look, we got closed toes, and you see some of the men's toes around here? I mean, come on. You ever seen a man's foot? Yuck. Them nasty corn chip, crazy looking toenails they got. And you know what? You know what that tells me about this woman? She didn't care what she had to get past. That tells me she had a focus in her that she didn't care what she had to crawl past. She was getting to where Jesus was. Oh God, wouldn't we have somebody like that don't care what they got to go through? They got to get to where Jesus is. Oh yes. If I know anything about the hem, it's at the bottom. That's where it's at. It's at the bottom. I don't know. She might have thought something like this. Oh, if I could just get to His face. If I could just touch His face. I'm talking about the face that just days prior sat outside the city and tears rolled down his cheek as he cried, oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem. If I could just touch His face. She couldn't get to His face. Maybe she thought something like this. Oh, if I could just touch His hands. The hands that just days prior broke the bread and fed thousands of people. Those hands that just reached down and grabbed Peter out of the storm and pulled him up. Those hands, if I could just get to them. But you know what? She said, I can't get to those hands. But if I could just get to the hem. You want to talk about faith, friend? That's faith. She said, if I could just get to the border of His garment. She believed in the power of the Lord Jesus Christ. You know what I've heard I've not heard all my life. I've heard it a lot though. I've heard preachers say, if you've got faith, you won't have fear. That's hogwash, honey. That's not so. Just because you got faith don't mean you ain't going to be afraid. Let me just prove it to you. Look in verse number 47. And when the woman saw that she was not hid, she came trembling. She is afraid, falling down to where He was. Look at verse number 48. Daughter, be of comfort. Thy faith hath made thee whole. She had great faith, but she came trembling. She had great faith, but she still was afraid. Well, you know what happened though? I want you to listen real fast. You know what happened? Her faith was where it's supposed to be. And it wasn't that she had no fear. It was just that, I want you to listen. It was just that her faith overtook her fear. Her faith was bigger than her fear. I ain't saying you ain't going to be afraid, but you need to get to the place in your life that you trust the Lord more than your fear takes over your life. If we ever needed that preaching right there, we need it in the country we're living in right now. I'm not saying you don't need to be afraid of some things, but honey, your faith needs to be stronger than your fear. That's what happened right here. Her faith made her whole. She had great faith. She's afraid as well. That helps me because there's times I'm afraid. But if my faith's where it needs to be, if my faith's in the right place, my faith will overtake my fear. There's a hateful proclamation made in verse number 49. While he yet spake, there cometh one from the ruler of the synagogue's house, saying to him, Thy daughter is dead. 4 words. Thy daughter is dead. I don't know about you, but if it was me that was in that position, first of all, whoever this dude was had to fight through a crowd to get where Jairus was. He somehow got word and elbowed and pushed his way through those people to get where Jairus was. And if it had been me, I just believe this, I think I probably could have said it a little bit better. Come on. This is kind of opinionated right here, but it's okay. I'm not getting too opinionated. This is just a little Simpsonology. I probably would have said something like this. Hey, Jairus, I really don't know how to tell you this, man. I'm sorry, but your little girl, she didn't make it. Wasn't that better than thy daughter is dead? That was better. It was better. You know what those 4 words almost feels like to me? This is where I said that opinion was coming in, but it's okay. Just listen to it for a second. It almost feels as if this dude is blaming Jairus for not getting back to where his daughter is. Hey, Jairus, thy daughter's dead. That's what he said. But hang on a minute. He didn't just blame Jairus. I think he's blaming the Lord too. Because he said, Thy daughter is dead. Trouble not the master. Jairus, you messed up. Yeah. You done waited too long to try to fix this problem and you can't fix it. And not only can you not fix this problem, don't worry about bothering Jesus anymore because it's too far gone for him. Ain't that what just happened? Don't trouble Jesus. Don't trouble the master, Jairus, because you done messed up too big. It's too far gone. Hey, listen to me. It's a lost cause. Give up on it. Guess what, though? It ain't over. It ain't over till God says it's over. Because even when this dude is saying, hey, Jairus, you done waited too long. It's done gone too far. You can't do anything about it. Not only can you not do anything about it, Jesus can't do anything about it. Leave him alone. Just let him go do something with somebody else. You know what? Let me get to the Bible. Look at what Jesus said when they were saying, hey, trouble not the master. Look what he said in verse number 50. Fear not. Well, hallelujah. He said, fear not. Believe only. You know what he's saying? Hey, it don't matter if everybody else is saying it's wrong. I'm the one that matters. Oh, man. Oh, yes. It don't matter if everybody else says that it's a lost cause. There are no lost cause with Jesus. It don't matter how far gone the situation may be. It don't matter how far out that prayer, how far-fetched that prayer may feel to you. Keep on praying it. I don't care if it's been 20 years you've been praying the same prayer. Don't stop praying. Don't stop praying. Because when everybody else says, well, I don't know why they're wasting their time doing that. Hey, God is able. Ephesians 3:20 is still in the Bible. He's able to exceed abundantly above all we can ask or think. It ain't over till God says it's over. Let me show you one quick thing. I want to preach on the healing presence that come in that room, but I ain't going to do it. There was a healing presence that come in that room at the end of this chapter. Let me show you this. What do you do when you get stuck? I built a real big foundation. That was all introduction. I'm not going to preach long. Some of y'all, your heart just sunk to your toes. I'm not preaching much longer. What do you do when you get stuck? Well, I believe you need to remember some things. There's some things you can remember. I'm going to give you a little bit of advice about how the Lord's helped me. What do you do when you feel like you're stuck? There's 3 things that I remember that helps me go on another step, go on another mile. First of all, real simple, I remember His mercy. In our text right here, we see the Lord's mercy on display. The one with the issue of blood, that's the mercy of God. Because she had done everything. I'm telling you, y'all make it so easy to preach. I'm gonna pass out when I get home. You know what? She had done everything she could. That's what mercy is, y'all. It's when you've done everything you can and you ain't good enough. And when you deserve hell, God don't give it to you. When you don't get what you deserve, that's mercy. You know what this woman with this issue of blood deserved? Just to be sick. Because she had done everything she could to heal herself. She couldn't do it. But through the mercy of God, she became healed. She was healed. I think June 22nd, I told you about it this morning, just a tiny bit. June 22nd, 2013, I experienced the mercy of God on my life. And whenever it feels like I'm stuck and my wheels are spinning and I'm really not making any progress in life and I feel like quitting or giving up, you know what I do? I go back to when I was 17. I was lost and on my way to hell. You know what I remember? I remember on Saturday night about 11:15, I was getting my hair cut. My mom was cutting my hair. I don't know why I was getting my hair cut that late on Saturday night, but that's what I was doing. And guess what? I'd fought it for 2 months, hard, under conviction. You know what happened? I gave up, and I experienced the mercy of God, rescuing me from a devil's hell. And when I go back there, and I think about God's mercy, not just there, but how His mercy endureth forever, and His mercies are new every morning, man, it ain't hard for me to go, well, I think I'll just take another step. I think I'll just go another mile. I think I'll just work for God one more day. I think I'll just serve Him one more time. It ain't hard for me to do that when I remember His mercy. Not only do I remember His mercy, I remember this. I'm not going back up there because I did that this morning. I'll preach all night. I remember He can multitask. I think about this text. If Jairus, again, let's go back. If Jairus was the average independent fundamental Baptist church member, not only would he have been mad at the crowd, he'd have been mad at that woman with the issue of blood. Hey! Jesus, you're with me. We ain't got time for a detour. We ain't got time for you to stop and heal this woman. Now, that ain't what he said, but I'm just saying if he was like you, he would have said that. Hey, if he was like me, let me say it like that so you don't get mad at me. If he was like me, he would have said that. We ain't got time for you to stop. We got to go. You know what Jairus found out? He can do two things at the same time. He can help that woman with the issue of blood and help Jairus' daughter. Man, I'm telling you what, it's real easy when you feel like you're stuck, feel like God ain't really helping you, God ain't really there for you. It's real easy to sit in your pew and look over there, that side of the church, and say, God, I don't know why you're blessing that person. I'm trying my best to do everything I can to serve you. Why are you helping that? I know y'all have never done that, but I have. Why are you helping that? Hey, listen here. God can work over there and over here. He can do it all at the same time. Why? Because He's God. That was a good explanation, wasn't it? Because He's God. That's why. Remember, He can multitask. He can do two things at the same time. No, not only all that. What do I need to remember, preacher? Remember His mercy. Remember He can multitask. Let me say this and I'll be done. Remember that He can still perform miracles. When it feels like you got nothing going for you, and you're faced with trouble after trouble, with storm after storm, with opposition in your life, you need to remember that He can still perform miracles. I got so many examples I could tell you. I ain't got time to tell you all of them. In the last 3 or 4 years in my life, I've seen God do miracle after miracle after miracle after miracle. You say, you're crazy. I promise you I'm not. I promise you I'm not. I don't even know which one to tell you. I got so many in my mind right now, I don't know which one to tell you. March the 4th, my little boy, we woke him up and he didn't wake up. He was unresponsive. He had bacterial meningitis, spinal meningitis, what it was. They didn't diagnose him for almost 48 hours. 1 in 5 die within 24. They didn't even diagnose him until 48. But he's here this morning. You know what He is? He's a miracle. Anytime I get in my life and I think things ain't going exactly the way they should, you know what I can remember? I can remember this year. And I can look at my little boy and you know what I can say? You know what? He's the same God. He's the same God. that I watched him raise that little boy up off that hospital bed from nothing. Good night, he was as good as dead. I was there, I watched it. And he's running around like a maniac this morning. There's one word that I can say for him. That's a miracle. You say, but that's been thousands of years ago, this story you told us tonight. No, that's true, but He's the same God tonight. He's the same God. I got to quit. But let me say this. Maybe you're in life right now and everything is perfect. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe you are. And there could be a good chance that maybe it's not perfect, but you're not really going through a storm. Can I say this? Hold on. They're coming. But there may be somebody here tonight, and it may have just been for me, I don't know. But there may be somebody here tonight that you don't really understand why. Don't really understand why you are facing what you're facing. Whether it be with your family, or you individually, your marriage, a son or a daughter. Don't understand why. It feels like he's stuck. I'm glad we serve a God. That's enough. Even when we feel it's out of our hands, it's never out of God's hands. It's never out of God's hands. We're standing with our heads bowed and eyes closed. She's going to come play soft for me.